So the first few chapters, the heroes that you choose, you got Washington, you got Ben Franklin, you got James Madison, and you got Frederick Douglass. And I bet if you asked everybody in the country, 95%, let's say, maybe a little lower, would say, okay, yeah, I'm with you on that. But then you get further and further into the book, and you get into people like Yoko Ono and Barney Frank, and something happens. These are more obviously modern figures. So why is it that in this country, beyond the mythologizing of the founding fathers, that we have great agreement on what went on our heroes from the past, but when we get to now, this country is completely splintered?
That's one of the themes in the book that I've noticed in myself. I vote in a certain way. I usually lean towards the Jon Stewart Colbert side of things, but there's also I have a lot of respect for the libertarian point of view. Like, whatever I do in my bedroom, if I'm not hurting anybody or anybody's property, you can go fuck yourself. And there's a lot to be said for that. But I noticed as I grow older that I began to feel like I was in a rut, or that my voting, my politics, were yet another part of the consumerism that we all suffer from so blindly. Where I was like, I feel like those of us that like, that point of view, we turn on John Oliver and he tells us who's an asshole. And then the other half of the country turns on O'Reilly or Fox News.
Turn on the assholes.
Yeah, they turn on the assholes. And they say the same thing. And I was like, I feel like we're sort of that's just another way we're being kept in this comfortable matrix-like rut where we're being bred as blue and red voters. And I was like, how will we ever see improvement if we all just remain so partisan? And that's I'm not smart enough to answer that question, but it's a question I wanted to pose because I wish somehow that, like, maybe Tom Cruise could pull it off.
Why isn't he one of the people in the book?
Why don't him and Nader get together? That could be the answer.
Ticket?
Yeah. If Cruise would bring down Scientology, he could get a groundswell, I think, to land in the White House. It's up to you, Tomcat. Talk to me, Goose. But it's a question that I wanted to pose for that very reason, and that's why it takes somebody like Yoko, who, growing up, I suffered under the same misapprehension as most people, where when you say Yoko Ono, they're like, oh, negative vibe, the lady who broke up. I don't know what else she does. What is she? Some New York artist, but she's the lady who broke up the Beatles. And I said that, and my wife is a very progressive and smart person, and she's a great curator of art. 15 years ago, she said to me, we're going to an art opening of Yoko Ono in Santa Monica. And I said, the terrible lady who broke up the Beatles? And she said, oh, I'm so sorry that I let you put your penis inside me. That's a quote. You can fact check that. Not the last time she said that. But she then explained Yoko's art to me, and she had the Grapefruit book and a couple other books, and I immediately was like, holy shit, I am besotted with Yoko. She's amazing. And then we went and met her, and we became friends, and like, she's wonderfully eccentric and playful and foxy and like vibrant, and she's in her 70s, and she's like a kick-ass rock star and artist. So I became a big fan of hers, and as I've learned more and more about her, I've said it's so criminal that she's not a national hero, and instead she has this like taint from when the Beatles broke up because we needed a scapegoat because there wasn't going to be another Abbey Road. And so that choosing Yoko was in part incentivized by wanting to vindicate her in the public eye, like to be like, you guys, you should take a second look at Yoko because she spent her whole life doing good for us.
Yeah.
Like, even though she saw this messianic figure who was her husband and our favorite musician of all time gunned down in front of her, she grieved and was like, I'm just going to continue on our message for the rest of my life. And she's astonishing. And so I think because politics and taste are so easily categorized by like the country music, right? The sort of old guard Bible, you know, the cadre of priests and nuns that are gathered around Governor Mike Pence as he signs a Religious Freedom Act, where you're like, do you realize you have a group of Catholic Klansmen like looming over you while you sign this evil, like discriminatory legislation? We can see you, dude. That's going on, but the thing is, they think they're doing the right thing, and so instead of say, hey, you're jerks, you're doing the wrong thing, I want to say, hey, you guys, just stop and think about this. I understand that you're dealing with like age-old traditions and you're acting out of fear, but you're being dicks to a certain group of people, and that's not cool. Like, that's what we'd say in our country. So you can still be Catholic and like do lots of good, but you also have to be cool to everybody. That's the rule.
Don't be a dick, though.
Don't be a dick. That was my proposed subtitle.